Okay, good morning, everybody. It is a beautiful day here in Hendersonville, North Carolina. Finally, the rain has stopped, and we're reaping the rewards of all the beautiful spring flowers and plants that are just so beautiful and colorful. And definitely one of my favorite times of the year. And it's just great to be here with each and every one of you live, as well as my friends who tune in from wherever. Peace and love to you as well. So today I wanted to choose a topic that I've made reference to last week, and it's the meaning of Ahimsa. And it's something that I came upon years and years ago when we had the center in Florida, the Palm Beach Center for Living. One of the first, it sort of grew so fast and furious, and I had no expertise, I had no background other than being a golf pro, and I knew nothing about running an organization like that, but it seemed everything just sort of fell into place as I needed it. And so one of those was meeting a very dear friend and a spiritual guide, Ma Jaya Sati Bhagavati was her name. And I remember I was at an event. We did a lot of work with the HIV and AIDS community in South Florida, and I met this woman, and this is her little story. She grew up in Brooklyn. She was raised Catholic. She was raised Jewish, excuse me. She married a Catholic, and she tells a story. She was extremely overweight. And she had a bunch of kids, and she said that someone said, "Oh, try yoga. That'll help you lose weight." So she went to Jack LaLanne Spa and started doing yoga, and she said, here she is, 300 pounds. She got this pink, what do you call those onesie suits that they used to wear? Leotard. I forget, leotard. And she was doing that, and she said she would practice the yoga. She'd go to class, and she said she was so funny. She said, and then she'd sneak up to a bathroom and lock the door and like pig out on whatever. But she was giving it her best shot, and her husband, who was Catholic, said, "You better not be messing around with that yoga, because that's remember when people used to think yoga would bring in darkness, and some people still might actually." And so anyways, one night after the kids and her husband all went to bed, she said she was doing this yoga in her living room, and Jesus appeared, literally came in, and she was kind of funny, and she said, "Oh, you must be here for my husband. He's upstairs." But that was the beginning of her spiritual journey, and his message to her. She had already been very involved in social service, and she was a wonderful person at that time already, but she said that his message to her was, "Teach all ways, for all ways are mine." And she really went to India. She became a student of the Hindu religion and never looked back. She opened up an ashram called Kashi Ashram, which is still in South Florida. It's in Sebastian, Florida. And it's a beautiful place. And so I became very familiar with the ashram. And back to the beginning, when I first met Ma, she's very much a character. At that time, she had this long black hair. She had, the Hindu little dot here. She had tattoos all over her body, the AIDS ribbon and dragons and all sorts of things. And she always wore these wild glasses. And her voice was so high pitched and Brooklyn all the way, and had no problem, dropping the F-bomb anytime, anywhere. I mean, she was just a loose cannon, but you just loved her. And she looked at me and she said, "You come with me next week and meet me at the county home." And I'm like, "Okay, I'll go." So I met her. They came from Sebastian, about an hour away, in their bus, which was this old dilapidated bus that they made in the red and the black, and they'd all step out of it, and it was very ritualistic. And they came every week bringing food and gifts and cigarettes, and because they felt, which I have to say I understood, that a lot of those residents there, cigarettes were the one thing they wanted more than they wanted anything. And so Ma would just come there and visit with all the the residents and sit down with them. And I think I've mentioned before to you guys, one of the things that was so amazing to her was they had a HIV/AIDS wing at that time. And, you know, at that time, I had never been exposed to that at all. And many of these people, I was literally in the rooms when they died, and many had, their faces were just eaten up with lesions, and their bodies were, you know, skeletal. And it was, she would just crawl in bed with them, and you know, lesions and all, just kiss all over them, and your ma's here. And I think one time she sort of, you know, she shocked the dickens out of me, because she was like, one of these guys, he was obviously a queen, and she goes, "Move over, you big homo, your ma's here." And, you know, he just lit up, and you know, it was, and she was really a unique person, to say the least. And we visited, she introduced me to all sorts of organizations, and eventually our center took over many of their outreach projects. And she had this ability to connect with everybody, even the little Baptist women. She would go in and she would be able to open up a Bible and pray with them. She had that ability to meet people where they were, which was such a great gift to me to see that in action, that you don't have to go and just be so rigid in your beliefs, because as Jesus told her, teach all ways, for all ways are mine. Well, I made many trips up to Kashi Ashram, still do many times when I'm in Florida. It's a beautiful place. All are always welcome there, so I'd recommend stopping by sometime. It's cool. It's really a great place. Anyway, I became a board member for her outreach organization, and you know, Ma was kind of controversial. Either people like, "Oh no, I lived in Miro and that woman is like nuts," or people are like, "Oh, she's like Mother Teresa." She had that effect on people. Probably sort of like I do. But either way, I did love her, and I went. The one thing that was so like difficult for me, because I can remember names pretty well if it's like Bob and Susan and Greg or Betty or something, but when you start putting these Jaya, Jambalaya, you know, like, and then you go there and they all know your name, and I'm like, okay, and so I would just, it was embarrassing, and I was like, gosh, I wish I could remember your name. But anyway, she gave a lot of her devotees that lived there Hindu names. And I never expected one, because I never became really a devotee of hers. I definitely enjoyed her teachings. And one day she says, "I've come up with a name for you." And I said, "Great." It was kind of cool. I said, "That's great." And she said, "It's Ahimsa." And so she had one of her darshans. She presented me as Ahimsa, and of course everybody's like, "Ooh, Ahimsa, that's beautiful." And you know, then immediately all of her devotees, over 100 of them, "Ahimsa, Ahimsa," you know, they write me notes, "Ahimsa." So it was kind of cool, and I appreciated it, and I think it's a beautiful name, but I never, I think, embraced it and really learned enough about it. And this was probably 15 plus years ago. And it was kind of like, well, that was very beautiful gesture, but that's about all I did with it, was say thank you. And as I mentioned last week, she passed away last year, 72 years old, a little over a year ago, last April, I believe. And she, when I had a psychic reading, and I usually don't indulge in those, but one of my friends' her enthusiasm led me to do this. So she said, "Who is it you'd like to contact?" Well, Ma had just died, and I said, "Well, how about Ma?" So this woman from New Jersey tunes in, and she says, she doesn't know me from a man on the moon, and she says, "Ma wants to know why you haven't used that name she gave you." And I said, okay. So that for me validated exactly that, okay, at least this woman's tuned into something. So I did pay attention, and still didn't do anything with it. But recently, it's come to me more and more, just to learn more about Ahimsa and what it means. And you know, the bottom line, Ahimsa means do no harm. That is, if you know, that's really what I learned about it. Another thing which is really interesting is Namaste. I always love the gesture, Namaste, the love in me beholds the love in you. And that was always something that Ma would do. And when she came in her high-pitched Brooklyn voice, you know, she'd, "Namaste!" And it was like, after you've been chanting, and it was just crazy. But so we, crazy good though.
Yeah.
But so Namaste Center, it's like, how did that happen? I really don't even I remember a Sunday afternoon, a group of us were sitting in here. This woman came to do a workshop, and it turned out that it became a naming ceremony for the Namaste Center. And so it was kind of like one of those weird things. Nothing that was supposed to be done in that workshop happened. We named the Namaste Center that afternoon. So all these things are leading me back to Ahimsa. So I did some research finally and said, I'm going to learn more about this. And wouldn't you know it, it is exactly my vision of what the Namaste Center is and my vision for my life. And so living Ahimsa and what that means is so beautiful and in alignment. And I'd like to share some of these ideas with you about Ahimsa. And it's spelled Ahimsa. And it says it's the most effective master method to counteract and eradicate completely the brutal and cruel in man. So that's the purpose of Ahimsa. The practice of Ahimsa develops love. It's another name for truth or love. Ahimsa is universal love, it is pure love, and it is divine prem. Where there is love, you will find Ahimsa. Where there is Ahimsa, you will find love and selfless service. They all go together. The one message of all saints and prophets of all times and climes is the message of love, of Ahimsa, which is selfless service. It's the best traits found and expressed in the daily life and activities of perfected souls. It is the one means not only to attain salvation, but to enjoy uninterrupted peace and bliss. And it says the way we achieve this or attain this is by injuring no living creature. And so it's, Ellen, you've heard we have spiders in our house sometimes, and my immediate in the past, I'll get the vacuum. And it's, now, we had a spider the other day, and I've been working on this, saying do no harm, and I really choose, and even the ants that are crawling in our food and everything, okay, because we have little ants, and so I'm like, I can't, since I've been really practicing this, it's like, no, do no harm, but Ellen killed a spider the other day. She did, I couldn't believe it, and she's like, okay, I did harm, and, but it's so true, because it is every, as we've learned in the Master Shah class, every living thing has a soul. We're all connected. We're all, I'm getting that at such a deep level now, and to do no harm. It says that the message of religion, or the message of Ahimsa, is one of love and peace. And before I even started reading this was in the mission I created for the center. And it says, it refrains from causing pain to any living creature, as I mentioned. And it also says that not only in physical harm, but in thought and word. And that has gotten my attention too. I recognize in the past how, even though I've practiced over the years developing an awareness of my thoughts when they get judgmental, that, from A Course in Miracles perspective, choose love, make another choice, offer forgiveness, and so on and so forth. And I always had that exercise, but this has gotten my attention again, because I am doing harm with certain thoughts. I am doing thoughts with certain deeds. So it's just another way of recognizing and living from a new premise. And of course, just goes on to say, sort of the same thing I've said already, but it says Ahimsa, or non-injury, of course, implies non-killing. But merely it says, this is how it says what I just said. Ahimsa, or non-injury, means entire abstinence from causing any pain or harm in any way whatsoever to any living creature by thought, word, or deed. Non-injury requires a harmless mind, mouth, and hand. And so something to think about. And it's something that we all have this potential to be. It's kind of like when I speak of Ahimsa, it's not Charlotte Ahimsa, we're all Ahimsa. And it's it's interesting that she planted that seed in me 15 years ago, and for whatever reason, I didn't feel compelled or drawn to pursue it or even take an interest in learning more about it other than do no harm. And it says here, all harsh or rude speech is Ahimsa, and it's using harsh words to beggars, servants, or inferiors is Ahimsa. Wounding the feelings of others by gesture, expression, tone of voice, and unkind words is also Ahimsa. Slighting or showing deliberate discourtesy to a person before is also not Ahimsa, but Ahimsa. You know, I love the quote, you can judge a person's character by how they treat a person who can do absolutely nothing for them. And I believe that's what this is saying. You know, it's real interesting, you know, how some people, they'll be in a restaurant and all of a sudden they're your friend and they're as nice as can be, but when they get in the restaurant, it's like, you know, they are not so wonderful to the people serving you and taking care of you. And, you know, it's coming back to that remembrance that we are all equal. We're all one, truly. And it says here, and A Course in Miracles says, you know, a few things. In my defenselessness, my safety lies. In my innocence is my strength. You know, we're totally upside down and backwards with our programming of, you know, that we have to be assertive and aggressive and fight for what we want. And you know, Jesus' demonstration, you know, turn the other cheek. I'm beginning to get that. I think that, you know, I recognize that sometimes that's what we need to do. And it says if you're willing to practice this Ahimsa principle, you should be able to be willing to put up with insults, rebukes, criticisms, and assaults. You should never, so there you go. And I'll tell you something interesting is it's not comfortable for me to defend. But sometimes people are like, you got to step in your power and do this. And I'm like, and then I do it and it's like, you know, slaps me in the face and I'm like, well, that's no fun. And that doesn't even feel right. And now it's beginning to make sense because, you know, that's not what it's really about. It says you should never retaliate nor wish to offend anybody, even under extreme provoking. You should not entertain any evil thoughts against anybody. You should not harbor anger. You should not curse. Oh, well. You gotta work on that one. You should be prepared to lose joyfully even your life in the cause of truth. The ultimate truth can be attained only through Ahimsa. It's the acme of bravery. It is not possible, Ahimsa is not possible without fearlessness. Non-violence cannot be practiced by weak persons. Ahimsa cannot be practiced by a man who is afraid of death and has no power of resistance or endurance. It is a shield, not of the effeminate, but of the potent. Ahimsa is a quality of the strong. It's a weapon of the strong. When a man beats you with a stick, you should not entertain any thought of retaliation or any unkind feeling towards the tormentor. Ahimsa is the perfection of forgiveness. And it goes on to say here that the message of Jesus, of course, on the cross, the ultimate, the crucifixion and his willingness and ability to offer forgiveness, that is a demonstration of true Ahimsa, what he did right there. And so what we can do is here's some ways we can practice and develop this. When thoughts of revenge and hatred arise in the mind, try to control the physical body and speech first. Do not utter evil and harsh words. You know, how often, there again, bringing it back to A Course in Miracles, the ego is just really raring and ready to utter out those evil and harsh words. You know, the ego speaks first and loudest, in other words. So we need to control the physical body from doing that. Do not try to injure others. If you succeed in this, practice for months and allow it to become a part of you. It's a practice, it's a discipline. And it says we need to control the body and the speech. So what it means when a man beats you, suppress your feelings, follow the instructions of Christ, Sermon on the Mount, which if a man beats you on one cheek, turn him the other cheek. So it is the ultimate just being willing to be submissive. And that is such an opposite program, I believe, than what this world is projecting to us right now. And all I can say is it seems like the defend, attack is not working, so why not give something else, give peace a chance, you know? When I think of Ahimsa, the person that just continues to come into my mind is Gandhi. You know, just his stand for peace. And ultimately he sacrificed his life for truth, as did Jesus and other masters, because they were bigger, their message was bigger than their physical bodies. And we have to be willing to take that step. You know, we all say we want to be more enlightened, to live from a higher perspective, but I think we draw a line somewhere that keeps us from, you know, clinging to the world and clinging to old beliefs and patterns. Even when, you know, the mention earlier of against Monsanto, you know, we've had that discussion in groups. You know, it's fine to go be part of a group, but be for peace, for good food. Not to say harsh or condemning words about the perpetrators, but rather to be there standing in what we believe in. And that right there is a miracle. It's a shift in perception and behavior. So it's, you know, we need to, this is a mantra. It says, make this strong demonstration. I will not speak any harsh word to anybody from today on. It says you may fail 100 times. What does it matter? You will slowly gain strength. Check the impulse of speech. Observe silence. Practice forgiveness. Or say within yourself when someone, I like this a lot, if someone's acting crazy, you know, the Course in Miracles says when a brother acts insanely, you can only heal him by perceiving the sanity in him. Well, the equivalent here, it says, say to yourself, he's a baby soul. He's ignorant. That's why he's done it. And not ignorant and like, you know, stupid, but it just doesn't know better. And, you know, truly we all are doing the best we can. And also ask yourself, what do I gain by abusing him in return? So slowly give up that ego attachment, because that ego attachment is the root of all of our suffering. And, you know, it's so very, I love that this is so, again, compatible with the teachings of the Course in Miracles and the universal theme of love. It just seems like, okay, we've gotten to one level. Now, what is it that we're willing to do from here? And it says, what are the benefits? Well, if you're established in Ahimsa, you have attained all virtues. Ahimsa is the pivot. All virtues revolve around Ahimsa. Just as all footprints are accommodated in those of the elephant, also do all religions and ethical rules become merged in the great vow of Ahimsa. Ahimsa is soul force. Hate melts in the presence of love. Hate dissolves in the presence of Ahimsa. There is no power greater than Ahimsa. The practice of Ahimsa develops willpower to a considerable degree. The practice of Ahimsa will make you fearless. He who practices Ahimsa with real faith can move the whole world, can tame wild animals and spiders, and win the hearts of all, and can subdue his enemies. He can do and undo things. The power of Ahimsa is infinitely more wonderful than electricity or magnetism. The law of Ahimsa is as much exact and precise as the law of gravity. You must know the correct way to apply it intelligently and with scientific accuracy. If you're able to apply it with precision, you can work wonders. And you can plan, and you can also command the elements of nature. And I really think that, you know, we are here to be one with all beings. The idea of the soul that lives in everything and everyone, every plant, every animal, this podium, this computer, everything. And to live from that premise and honor and love and choose not to harm in thought, word, or deed. I believe that's when literally, as Scripture tells us, you know, we can move mountains Well, when we practice in this, it's as if the universe is opening up to our every command, because our every command is now coming from that which serves the higher and greater good of everyone and everything. So it says here, there is a hidden power in Ahimsa which protects its practitioners. The invisible hand of God gives protection. There is no fear, and it says, what can pistols and swords do? And it says, even now there are people who do not give the least pain to any living creature. They carry sugar and rice for distribution to ants in their holes. They do not, there you go. They do not use lights at night for fear of killing small insects. They are careful while walking in streets, as they don't want to trample on small insects. Blessed are these men and women, because they will see God, as they have very soft hearts. So it really is. I invite you all to just take that into your meditation in your quiet space and live, doing no harm. Where could we do a little better? And not, as it says, we may try 100 times and fail, but not to give up on it, because it is who we are. We are all Ahimsa. And I'm so grateful that has come back into my awareness. And I wish that Ma, even though I know she's here, I just wish you all could have met her in the three-dimensional reality. She was a character, but anyway, I know she's here guiding us and holding our hands through this entire process, if we just allow ourselves to tap into it. And as Jesus said, teach all ways, for all ways are mine. And there is the other radio station now that I'm with, WTZQ, but since I'm doing no harm to WHKP, where the heavens kiss the peaks, there's a fella on there that does an afternoon or late morning show, and he says, in closing every day, he says, remember, it's nice to be important, but it's more important to be nice. And it says, I just read this quote this week, it says, if you have a choice between being kind and nice, choose being kind and you will always be right. If you have I screwed that up. If you have a choice between being kind and right, choose being kind and you'll always be right. So there you go. And so it is. Namaste. Namaste.